Okay, good Monday morning. I hope everyone had a productive weekend. The weather was great, and I know our lead volume was up about 25% last week from the week before, just from pipeline referrals from the referral network. So we can usually tell when the weather's good, people are more interested in buying. So open houses is something I wanted to talk about today. We'll go through our KDNA numbers, but then I also wanted to talk about some open house successes and some open house challenges and some things we're doing to refine our open house strategies. And Brian's here, Brian Fuller from Prospect Mortgage as well. We were chatting about that before today's call. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about the email I sent out last weekend on Thursday. So our KDNA numbers first. I want to welcome Venus and Wes. Thank you for joining us today. And Sarah had fantastic numbers in our KDNA. She was leading our charts. And I talked with Sarah extensively or emailed us what she's doing to drive some of the results that she's getting on her open house activity and her contacts. So she had 20,000 what she considered flyers or engagements that were offered. So these are Facebook posts, basically through the Facebook promoted posts that are directed to her geographic farm and her zip codes and areas. So out of those 20,000 that were posted, then there were 80 engagements. So keep in mind, an engagement is a dialogue, and it's difficult when you're offering something online to get that person on the phone. It needs to be the number one goal. How do I create an engagement? An engagement should be a dialogue. So, and a dialogue will lead hopefully to an appointment, of course, appointments to offers and offers to close business. So that's what we track through the process in the KDNA, and that's the big point of the KDNA. Are we being efficient with that? So it goes back to our marketing contest for number 4, which is what kind of ROI are we getting on our marketing? So she spent $50 one week on Facebook promoted posts, and she spent $60 on another week on her Facebook promoted post for her open house. So those are fairly reasonable budgets, and that's driving quite a bit of engagements for her. And those engagements are bringing people to the house, and of course those people are writing offers. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And it's important to understand the fundamentals of the business first before you're spending a lot of time on social media and marketing yourself online. And Sarah it sounds like that she understands the fundamentals of that engagement. And so using different platforms to drive engagement is what she's doing, Facebook being one of them, and it's working. So it's why a lot of trainers discourage the use of social media, because the agents so many times don't understand the fundamentals behind what drives that engagement. So it's marketing that creates a response. Are you creating a response with your marketing? And that's what we want to measure for metric number 4 each week. So she did have 80 engagements, and out of those engagements, then she had appointments, and she also had 6 buyer appointments that were held as a result of some of those activities. Kathy had 7 hours that she was contacting last week. So, and that was 255 also flyers or postcards that she put out, and she spoke with 80 people. And a lot of those were the group meetings, and she had 200 in her database. I think it was 260 people, 280 prospects from the investor seminar a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago that she hosted, that she's now put into her database. So that's great. And then Tammy's done a great job. 11 hours she spent contacting last week, and 247 engagements that were made through her flyers or direct mail, which resulted in 62 contacts. And out of those 62 contacts, she also had an open house. So open house drives your engagement rate up as well. Those face-to-face engagements are more valuable, more important than about any other engagement you can have. Frederick also had 15 hours he was spending on contacting and spoke with 50 people, and also hosted an open house. So you guys, I've noticed the ones that are hosting open houses, you're also creating the most contacts, and that's also driving business. So kudos to you guys on your open houses. Corey, 8 hours contacting last week, and 14 contacts that he made, and also did not hold an open house, but had 7 buyer appointments last week. It's a lot of buyer appointments. And Venus also attended the Urban League and the Real Estate Investor Networking event. So attending meetups and attending different group meetings. If it's a high quality group, make sure you're paying attention to what the quality of the group is. Are these potential homeowners? Are these people that will be buying, or they own real estate? So people that are real estate investors, that's a great venue. Venus, since you're here, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Some of the other activities, how you develop those conversations and those relationships. You mentioned 2 possible leads from there. Kind of how did those conversations go? Good. So other groups that are important are young professionals. So young professionals in their specific work environment. So let's say if it's a CPA, or if it's an attorney, or if it's an engineer, they're architects, then they all have their own continuing education hours many times that they have to meet, and they also have different associations or trade associations. So how involved are you in trade associations of professionals? I know the Dallas Bar, they have meetings almost every Tuesday of the month, for different areas and different groups within the Dallas Bar. Just in the Dallas Bar Association alone, I think there's 20 to 30 different groups of attorneys, everything from minorities to the certain sectors and specialists. So even subgroups within professional organizations that are professional trade associations or organizations, there's lots and lots of business there. So do you have whether it's a spouse or someone else that you know, maybe that's in your sphere of influence, that ask them, start talking to them. Are they involved in those trade associations, and what do they do? Do they go? Do they find value in the meetings? What do they get out of it? Do they allow sponsorships? So some of these sponsorships are extremely cheap. You don't have to pay for lunch or for sometimes anything. Sometimes you'll be surprised how inexpensive the sponsorships are for these trade associations, because these are non-profit associations. These are associations to benefit their group. So if you have something that you can talk about that would benefit their group, whether it's investing, whether it is tax, 1031 exchanges, they're really try to find out what you can do, or a skill that you can refine and then speak about possibly at that association. Just attending and meeting people is good, but if you speak at those groups or those associations, that's fantastic. I know Nina's done a great job doing that with a couple groups that she's in, and Venus now being more involved in a group. So look into that. That's a great use of your time. Also on Wes, do you want to give us some of the things that worked for you last week that you saw some success in?
Converted another listing off. Photography, just things like that. That's separating from vendors. Open house, which we spoke about earlier. We're really nothing came about. I was able to help my seller prices all to get a full price offer in 40 hours.
Right. So Wes had an open house last weekend, and it indirectly benefited his seller to where they were able to price their home where they had an offer within 40 hours. That's pretty good. That's because a competing seller walked across the street, and Wes was able to develop a rapport and conversation there. And there's so many indirect benefits to open house, and that's why to really understand how effective open houses can be, many times the real effectiveness comes from the indirect benefits, just like what Wes experienced. So don't look at it as just to have buyers that are going to be buying that property or even other property, but the indirect exposure, it's free marketing in your area, in your geofarm, and there's a lot of power that goes with that. Right, right. And Wes had mentioned earlier is that there's not a lot of Waller Group agents out there, so when they see a different sign, it's not like any other open house sign that's Remax or Keller Williams. It is, they're seeing your sign, so that really helps you brand yourself for that area, and that's worked well for Wes. He had also mentioned how the value proposition, Wes does a great job really explaining his value proposition. This is something you hear me talk about a lot, but actually explaining the benefits of what you do different from your competition. And that's part of the power of geofarming, is that you're able to really explain what you do different in that specific area. And that really should increase your profitability over time when you have that skill set. He also made Wes the free moving. He said something that's been a better benefit for his clients has been decluttering and the free storage. So 90 days free storage, he's now marketing that on his direct mail and postcards, and that's been real effective. So different price ranges respond to different things. So that's where knowing your market is so important. He's really learned what his market is responding to, and that's important, asking the right questions with those prospective buyers and sellers. Great job, Wes. Rupel has FSBO, Jill and Rupel, they've both made a lot of FSBO open house progress. So keep that in mind. The Waller Group for Sale by Owner open house program is working fantastic for Jill, and I applaud her and Sarah and their efforts on their open houses. So I just wanted to read you a little bit more of Sarah's email. She began a just listed campaign along with her. It ran just for Saturday through Monday with a budget of $60, and she had 11,000 reaches. There reached 11,000 people with 936 clicks. So those are people who actually clicked on that and they wanted more information. So that's a good way to measure your engagement. How many clicks are you getting? And then the property, she had phenomenal turnout at her open house. She had scheduled appointments for her listing was in the 40s. So yeah, she had to stay longer for her open house, an extra hour, just because people kept showing up at the open house. She had over 24 groups come through, and she has an offer deadline for today at 10 a.m. So one of the things Wes and I was talking about earlier as well on these open houses and how effective your open house is how competitive is the price. It has to be priced competitively for you to have this kind of turnout, this kind of traffic at your open house. So making sure that you're coaching your for sale by owners on the price, and that's part of following that Waller Group for Sale by Owner open house program. It has to be priced properly in order to generate this type of traffic. So it's a great way to sharpen your skills on pricing and your CMA skills on these Waller Group for Sale by Owners open houses. Okay, guys, any other closing thoughts for the week? Keep in mind our contest is coming to a close. This is the last week of the marketing contest for metric number 4. So be sure to put in the notes in KDNA what your call to action is and what that's leading to. So for example, with Sarah, she's done a great job letting us know what the call to action is on these campaigns, how she's creating these numbers, and then what it's leading to, how many appointments. So it's been a real high ROI, return on her investment, to spend $110 and have this kind of feedback. And it's quick, it's immediate. So it's a little bit faster than direct mail sometimes. There's a lot of it. It's really important to use multiple different venues and different ways to market yourself. Direct mail is one of them, usually the most expensive. Facebook is another one that's less expensive. Online is typically going to be a little bit less expensive. And then of course, nothing's more powerful than face-to-face, for if you're door knocking and if you're right in front of them. And that's another reason those open houses are so effective. All right. Any other closing thoughts you guys can think of? Brian is also, I talked with Brian about attending your open houses. when you're having, with this kind of weather, you're going to have, if you're priced competitively, your listing, you're going to have a lot of activity at your open house. If you just follow the basic things, then you should have traffic of 20 plus people through that open house. And it really is good to have someone that's there helping you. So a co-host at your open house. And Brian had just reiterated this morning his offer to do that for you guys as agents here at the Waller Group. And the other thing that I would encourage, when you have a multiple offer situation, I would encourage you to request your the buyers. If you're not working with that buyer, request that agent for them to qualify with your lender. If they are, that should be one of the questions you're asking these co-op agents when you're getting these multiple offers. Have you worked with this lender? Have you closed loans with them? What's your experience with this lender? And if they say, well, no, they found them online, or this is the buyer's lender, then I would say, well, in order for me to recommend my offer or to consider me recommending this offer to my seller, I want your buyer to have a loan application with my lender because I've closed business with them and I know that it will be a reputable qualification or approval. And that's something that you guys have to be strong as listing agents. And you could be doing your seller a disservice if you're recommending them to take an offer from a lender that you've never worked with or doesn't have a track record. So that's a real important conversation with that co-op agent that's bringing you that offer on your listing. Okay, guys, have a fantastic, productive, and profitable week.